Hi, it's me again, your best friend, Alvin, the person who secretly lives behind your house. But I do emerge to water your plants and other things like whisper existential thoughts into the wind. Anyway, let's talk about healing, the kind that doesn't neatly fit into to do lists or productivity hacks. Today, we're talking about what happens when your body no longer fits into capitalism's timeline. In this episode, I sit down with my friend Kelley for a conversation that's equal parts cosmic and grounded. From navigating 4 autoimmune diagnoses to finding softness in nature and music, this conversation explores how the body becomes a messenger and how listening to it can change everything. We talk control, surrender, cultural conditioning, and healing as a spiritual path, especially when you choose a life outside the default settings. So, let's get into it. This is the diary of the soul, because behind every face is a story, and behind every story is a lesson. Welcome to the show, Kelley.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad to have you here. And it's also really nice just to sit down with someone who I've known for so many incarnations on this earth.
That's so very true.
How would you even describe some of those dynamics that we've had over the years?
I would say friend, protector, hiding corners for both of us, safety nets, like at a distance, reconnected. I think we have like had parallel growing, you know what I mean? That has made like an infinity loop to a point now where it's just like, oh my gosh, now we're growing up again together in this place where I don't think a lot of people our age are doing anything at all in terms of growing, you know? But we also had a lot of intense experiences in our early and mid 20s and early 30s that I don't think a lot of people dealt with either. And our late teens, which is probably, and early teen. I mean, 0 to 35, if we're really being honest, like that a lot of people weren't dealing with or even talking about in the early 2000s, like when we first met, that probably really pulled us together. So I'd say overall, that would be ohana. That's the one word I would use.
Yeah, I think that's very apt. It's very all encompassing of all the different lives we've kind of shared and the growth we've had apart, and then now the life we share again together in the same space.
That's so sweet. I think we're soulmates and I don't think all soulmates are romantic. That's just my personal belief. And you know me, I go hard just as hard for my friendships as I do for my romantic relationships.
Yeah,
So, um, I think you're definitely one of my soulmates,
exactly.
but I think there's just been things that you and I have been able to be to each other that, at a lot of different times and places that just happen to fill a spot. The universe was like, "Oh, here's this person, like, they're here, they're for you."
Yeah. No, I think that's very poetic and very descriptive. So, I want to start off the podcast episode with an opening tradition that I have, which is to ask every guest what's one thing, big or small, they've done recently that's brought them some joy.
Mm. Recently recently, so this is one of my secret favorite things, but, I woke up early. I tend to, but, um, just watching squirrels, run across picket fences. If you've never seen it, it's the most hilarious thing ever. Um, and so watching that against the sunrise, no matter how I wake up feeling, always just starts me, like, just cackling.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of when you were describing that I thought of Meerkat Manor.
It's just as silly.
Yeah. Um, it's sort of along those lines with nature. So I went to see my parents earlier this week. I was there on Tuesday, and they're good. And as I was leaving, I passed by my friend's house, and she was outside in her garden, and her kids were running around, and they're just enjoying being kids and rightfully, oblivious to the world around them. And so I was like, "Oh, let me stop by and say hello because I hadn't seen her in a while." And I pulled into the driveway, and we caught up, and we're talking shit about the new neighbors, because she lives 4 houses down from my parents, so, my parents' neighbors are also her neighbors. But before I left, she gave me a sprig of mint and a sprig of
Mm.
lemon balm, and I'm actually propagating those to start my own herb garden in the
Oh,
back.
love it.
Yeah, and it's just been a nice little light to focus on, getting into gardening because 'cause I've always been really good at keeping indoor plants, but now I kinda wanna expand into gardening.
I love that.
So we've kind of had these conversations about the universe will send you signals,
Mhm.
and I think your environment will whisper things that you need to hear or do, and if you don't listen to those things, it will eventually start shouting them.
Oh, yes.
And I think when it comes to health issues, a lot of people will learn to live in discomfort, you know? And
Couldn't be me.
right. And so people will stop, listening to their bodies until it starts demanding instead of asking them to make changes. And I know you've battled with health issues, and I'm sort of curious in those beginning battles, what were the whispers that you responded to?
I would say here's what I know. I came into the world with, like, stomach issues. They didn't know that I had celiac at birth, but, I was allergic to the formula, so I've always known, like, stomach issues, you know, but I think by the time I was maybe, like, 10 and I was having these debilitating migraines, I was like, "Oh, hell no. I'm 10. I have what? Mm-mm, 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 mm-mm. No, mm-mm, mm-mm." And I was missing so much school, but I was still doing it's so crazy how much school I was missing, but was able to keep up. And um, one of my parents even had mentioned to me, you know, "We didn't even consider taking you out of school. We didn't even think about that." And as sick as I was, and a lot of the kids that were going through what I was going through were out of school. Like there was a kid across the street was um that was celiac, had to come out of school because they weren't sure yet. And I know a kid now dealing with some similar like stuff. But I would say at 10 when I was started to get these, migraines and I couldn't do anything, and, like, my whole body would just be like, "Rah," like, screaming in pain, um, and I knew something was going on. So I would say 10 when you were s and it was like you're saying, it's not a whisper anymore, it's a shout, it's a scream, and so it was just I would say from 10 until maybe 22, I was just, like, plugging along
Wow.
because that's what I was going to the doctor at, like, UVA and going to all these specialists and having all of these tests done and procedures done and surgeries, and, yeah.
Yeah, it's really tough, I think, to be growing up and also dealing with health issue at the same time, you know? Because you already have to deal with matters of like expanding your mental state and emotional state. And on top of that, like your body is having trouble, but that's outside of the norm. And so I'm curious did it ever get to a point where it was like, this has to be your number one focus now, not something that you can ever put second?
Excuse me. It was junior year of college, um, And it was so I would have had I had, like, 3 semesters left, basically, and I was getting ready to go and to start my thesis, and my writing was like, "Oh, ho, sit down. No, you're not you're not finishing, um, it's not gonna happen." Um, there was days that I couldn't even get out of my bed, and I was losing so much weight, and I think I got down to, like, maybe 94 pounds, and I'm about 5'6".
Wow.
Yeah, and it was my dad who's like, you have to withdraw, you have to come home, you're too sick, like, you need to you need to you need to take a minute to kind of." I was like, "I only have 3 left, like, everybody's gonna fit." And here's the thing, at 21 or so, yeah, like 20, whatever that age is, like, you only have, like, a year and a half left of college, all your friends are on track to graduate. I was pissed. I was like, "I'm not sitting." "What do you mean, sit down? Y'all have made me chug a lug, like, up this hill for the past, like, 12 years. I've been sick and, just been churning out this work and just and being competitive at that, graduating the top 10% of my high school class, uh, and still being sick, missing, um, so much of school sometimes." And my dad was like, "But you don't even weigh 100 pounds." And he was like, "And if you to even get you to weigh that much, it would take a couple of weeks. So that should tell you, like, logically, maybe, you need to, like, get healthy, gain some weight. You have your whole life to go to school." And I was like, "Okay." And I was like, I need to start thinking about, like, that was the first time I didn't think about my decision immediately in front of me because my frontal lobe wasn't developed yet. You know what I wasn't 25. So I was like, "Oh, my choices have to be different. I have to think about long-term energy, long-term effectiveness of my body, how to use it, how long I want to use it on earth, and I have to graduate with, like, not with my class, but I get to live a lot longer. Maybe my dad and I don't always agree on everything, but that was something, I was like, okay, maybe I need to open my ears and soften my mind on this one. And he was right, like, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. I'm wondering, when you go back to that time, was it something where you felt like you agreed with him all at once, or did it take multiple conversations for you to sort of see his side of the situation?
I saw his side, I didn't like it, and so it was a lot of, tw think about it, because like, when you're 21, you think you're grown, but you're like
Right.
you're still a teenager, and even when you're, um and so when I went back, I was, 22, 23, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, you're so old." I'm like, "Am I though?"
Right. In the grand scheme of things, just all of y'all babies.
Right? I was like, "Okay," you know? And I was able to once I was able to, get a few more diagnoses and learn what was going on with my body and get to the right specialist and have a good PCP who I still have today. So yeah, so I've been seeing my PCP for, like, 15 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she's really been, um I lucked out. I will say that. I lucked out. I've been able to keep her through insurances, loss of insurances, um, like, change of life, and fortunately for me, like, she actually, like, cares about my whole person, and so, that has been I would say that has also been key to some of the investigative nature of, um, finding out some of the things I have going on in terms of I have 4 autoimmune conditions, celiac disease, rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's syndrome, and, gosh, sometimes I'd be pretty look, I shoulda just brought my binder with me because like, the stuff oh, and POTS, I'm pretty sure POTS is considered a autoimmune condition as well.
That's a laundry list of things.
Yes, sir. That's just and then I also have a pituitary tumor and an ovarian tumor. Um, yeah.
So I'd imagine it was a bit of a journey just finding those diagnoses and figuring out how to tackle each one, you know?
You oh my god. Like, some of the rheumatologists when I first got diagnosed with, rheumatoid arthritis, and the doctor was like, "You're too young, you don't have rheumatoid arthritis." I was like, "Okay, fair, but it doesn't cost you to test" and this was the first time I remember ever seeing it but for myself in a doctor's office, and I was like, "Okay, maybe I don't, but I'm the only one that has to give anything for us to find out. You gotta take my blood, you charge my insurance, and it's my time. Why not just go ahead and let's have the test so you can tell me no?"
That's a great perspective. And also a great advice about how you have to be your own advocate.
It was upsetting because it was a doctor who looked just like me. So it's like, "Really? Really? Really, friend? Is that"
Right.
neither here nor there, but no, it's here. But the test came back positive, and she was shook. I wasn't.
Well, I mean, you've been living in this body for years, right? And this person just met you.
Yeah.
So it's very easy for them to fall back on, but this is what the statistics say.
Mm.
And like, well, this is what my body is telling me.
That and my mother also had it, so it's just, like, looking and I was like, "Can you just check and see if this isn't what's going on?" And so that's been a big thing for the past 15 years, just managing that. I have a great rheumatologist now, though, she's amazing. Um, and she manages my Sjogren's as well, which has been put into remission, hallelujah.
So
And
how have these illnesses like shaped your understanding of your own health, or even your own control over your own body?
well, here's the I do realize that there really are 3 minds in your body, in your physical state is what I say. Your mind has its own body. I mean, your body has its own mind. Your mind is your mind, and then your soul has a mind as well. And so understanding that, the mind of my body is going to be about survival. It's gonna be about perseverance, it's about keeping me alive, like, that's its instinct, that's what it runs on, you know? My soul's gonna be like, "What feels good? What do I want in this moment?" Or sometimes it can be your body too, but, and then just making sure all 3 of those are what's the right thing for me in that moment. I hope that kinda answers.
No, it does. Yeah. I mean, it also involves a lot of juggling different
Yeah.
voices and different needs and knowing when to like pump the brakes on this one. Step, I need to focus on this part. And how do you integrate all of those, which I think is part of growing up in general. But then when you have all of these other diagnoses, it's also incorporating those voices into it as well.
Yeah, it is a little bit like driving a clutch, I would say, and then also, if you take care of yourself overall, a lot of things help, you know, in other ways, like a lot if you're taking care of your gut, then that's gonna affect your skin in good ways. If you're taking care of your muscles, so just maintaining, like, trying to be ahead of the game a lot of the times, and then sometimes, you get some surprises because there's some things that I cannot control with a lot of those things, like hormone fluctuations or whatever have you. But most of my life is, I would say, symptom management in terms of controlling that mind for my illnesses' minds and speaking to them. So it's like in the morning, like, what are they saying? What are they talking about? What do they need? And what are they asking for? And so I answer those who I answer to first, because then they allow me to function. And then I usually go by my way.
I like that. I think it's very interesting the things that we have to deal with as humans and how they're very unique. And far more interesting than that, I think, is how people choose to deal with something and the healing path that we decide to take or not, depending on the person.
I look, I it couldn't be me. I don't understand that. Like this, you get one time to come around as your version of your stardust and carbon or and all of that. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. So, yeah, this is my deck, and it's not fun to. I know somebody, they said if everybody put all of their stuff in the pile, everybody would take their own stuff back. And I think that's true because I have never looked at anybody's life and been like, oh, yeah, I could manage all of that. But I know people look at me and I look like there's nothing wrong with me, but behind the scene, they don't know there's the production, if you've ever seen Sound of Music, when they have the puppets and they're like, that's definitely my life. Like the 4.5 hours before I go anywhere is just like getting all the little stuff together, making sure, you have like if you get lightheaded, you have your water. If you get, this, you have this med. If you get this.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you've been pretty good about piecing together um, the different things that you need to do for symptom management,
Oh yeah.
and I'm curious, what are the like components to your healing path?
So I started, let me see. I s- the components I will definitely say is overall it's a combination of just I would say folk medicine, Eastern medicine, and Western medicine. So I have a PCP, but I also see acupuncturist. I I love to do yoga. Yoga is essential to um my arthritis routine. Otherwise, like I'd be, you know, like crickety ricket, just like
That's it, man.
yeah, very much. And yeah, definitely I like to jump rope because I don't care for running. I have to stay ahead of the pain because it's like you're gonna be in pain. So a lot of the other ways I do is like, okay, I have to treat my body like I'm an athlete. So, okay, does that feel like you have a sprain? Okay, roll it out. Does that feel tight? Okay, put some magnesium, hot, cold, da da da. Like, just again, symptom management. And it's just, I'm a life lead.
Yeah, a longevity athlete,
Yeah.
definitely. I can get that sense from how you live your life.
hmm The things I use, like I said, like rollers, like a lot of me too. I use RSO is definitely my lifesaver. That is
Awesome.
Rick Simpson oil.
Okay.
And it was developed by a Canadian man in Newfoundland, and he had I don't I wanna say he had skin cancer, and it's like this concentrated form of cannabinoids, and it's like CBD and THC,
Mm.
and that stuff gets me up and walking like I could. I'm good to go. No lightheadedness, no stomach issues, no stress, ready for the runway. Like,
The elixir.
it is an elixir. CBD is an elixir. CBG is an elixir as well. Those help so much with inflammation. I was terrified to start using weed and THC, and so I started with CBD, and that changed the whole game for me. CBD and things like turmeric, and just changing the way I ate and those kind of stuff. And so when somebody's like, "Oh, you like CBD? Well, try this." And then I got my med card, and I didn't start. It's so crazy because I didn't start smoking weed till I was 30.
But to me, that's probably the best time to start. Not when your brain is still forming or for peer pressure, but for actual good reason.
Yeah, and I was just like, "Oh wow." But yeah, no, it changed my life. We definitely changed my life. And Rick Simpson.
Wow. It sounds like you have a very holistic approach. I'm curious, is also what are your rituals for your mind in this process as well?
So one of the things that when I had so I was teaching for a period of time. I like to say I'm a retired teacher. And I had to move back home. That was the beginning of the breaking down of my ego. I will say that. Having to leave work and move back in with my parents.
Giving of your independence.
Oh my God. Having to move back in and not knowing what the end in sight was because I was ill was just devastating. And everybody's like, "Well, are you gonna go to work? Are you gonna go to work? Are you at work? What about working? Are you gonna be working? Have you started a job? Are you look, if y'all have one of these health issues, if I gave you like one of these cards that I have, you would be you wouldn't be anyway." So I had to start letting go people's opinions of what I was doing and like me being at home and not working and such. And I started looking into, I was like, I feel so horrible, but I need to do something about it. I can't just feel horrible for the next 60 years. I just can't spend the next, this is not Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I don't have any grandchildren. Like, I'm not finna be up in this bed, like grandpa and grandma,
Right.
like Charlie's for grand. It, it, I can't. And so I just started doing research. The first thing I realized I needed to fix was my sleep. And so I started doing sleep training and doing sleep research and stuff like that. And I um, just looked into Ayurvedic medicine and realized like when was the best time for me to wake up and go to sleep. And that was a very, very, very first. Before I did anything else, I found out when the best time for me to go to sleep and wake up was. And having that routine now has changed everything. So that's something I can depend on. But I usually wake up before the sun rises because I've started that routine. And I just sit in the quiet. And as the time goes, you can hear different sounds. It's like the beat drops. You know what I mean? It's like, hit them birds, give me them Mack trucks. All right. I hear you, school bus on 0902. Like, it's like the music of life. Um, and so just waking up and having that, it's almost like having a day before the day gets started. Just listening and observing and realizing that um, it's so precious to be just existing at this moment in time, to be able to see whether it's raining, whether the sun is sapphire, I mean, the sky is sapphire blue, um, just acknowledging like all of the things that are going on around me because, and just being like, oh my gosh, I get to see that.
which to me is more rewarding than going off and worrying about working some job somewhere. But to be present and make experiencing every moment your job.
Yeah, I feel like I'm my ancestors' biggest dreams. I'm the biggest success story because not only have I stepped outside of this system, like unwillingly, yes, if initially, um, but I found a way to just look at life with a eye that I don't think I would necessarily have had I not had time to slow down, had I not been forced to. Because so many people don't get to just, like, look at the world, like, just look, you know?
You said something that really resonated with me, and that when you took a step back, people were always asking, "But are you looking for a job? And what's your next step?" And I have this, I don't even know what to call it. So earlier this week, I was feeling run down. It was on Wednesday. And I said, you know what? Let me just have a relaxing day while still on the couch. And so I got on the couch, put my blanket on, I put some music on, I was vibing, and that lasted for 2 minutes. And then I pulled my laptop out. I was like, well, let me do some of these internet chores while I'm sitting here. And that thought that just sitting here isn't enough is something that I think comes from being born and raised in capitalism. And I have to challenge that because sitting here is enough. And that is what listening to my body is, But my brain that has been programmed in these institutions to say everything you do must be tied to some sort of output. And I think that's something that I've been learning to deprogram, over the years. But that just kind of really struck a chord with me when I heard you say that, because I think so many people live in that sphere in some way. And I think that's where a lot of those voices came from.
I 100% agree with you, and I know it comes from that being raised in capitalism, specifically the, um, the mid-90s, and I feel like the early 2000s just kinda, like, kicked it into gear with the, you know, advertisements and internet, and it's just a whole different ballgame now, and people just want stuff, 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 and it's like, we don't need any stop first of all, stop stop making stuff. No,
Enough stuff.
we got enough shit, okay? We got enough shit on this planet to fill everybody to put every single person in their own home and fill it up completely with everything they need, and that makes me sick because we don't have like, a supply problem, we have a distribution problem. But yes, back to the capitalism, and it's in everything, it's everywhere, it's in healthcare, it's you can't escape it, and it's frustrating because well, you can escape it a little bit, but you have to make different choices, but in some of those choices, you have to realize that there's still somewhat of capitalism in there because at some point in your supply chain, you're gonna have to, go into capitalism and there's gonna be corruption, and so you have to kind of just deal with the idea that, that's just part of the world and you know that it's happening, but unless we decide as, like, an entire human race of people that we're gonna deconstruct it or use, like, fight back in small ways, like your NAP, your achievement, that was a protest. And there's a, author, Trisha Hershey, and she wrote a book called Nap Ministry, and she basically talks about how, um, taking breaks and naps are a form of protest against capitalism because 'cause you're not doing anything, you're not protesting. I mean, you're not making anything but giving yourself rest, and rest is what and it's interesting because I was like before I was like, if I could give my ancestors like, if I give Black women from 150 years ago, what would I give her? Shit, rest, a nap.
You bring up a really good point, especially as I just finished reading Kindred by
Mm,
Butler.
mm.
Just realized their whole life was just working.
Work. That's it. Even when I came back home, um, and I was sick, I still had to get a job because I had to pay for all my health stuff. Like, there's still some procedures I can't get done that my insurance doesn't cover that I can't afford. It's like, okay.
Yeah. I really like that idea of rest as resistance or rest as a form of protest for capitalism. And that's something that I think should be taught, especially in America, because I feel like we're very much so like a product centric, cheap goods, convenience society.
We want it and we want it now,
Yeah.
and we really don't need it, and it's just, like, so much of the things that they're selling us, 1, we already have, 2, we don't need, or like, I started looking at the things that they were telling me, I'm like, "Do I really need that? Do I have something that's similar to that?" I'm always trying to find ways to to use less of what I have. Um, but yeah, yeah, capitalism, that's why.
You've opted out of the traditional capitalist timeline.
And yeah,
Do you think that you've lost or gained things by doing that?
I think I've gained a life experience that unpaid for that is, incomparable to the dollar. Um, I think I view life and money very differently than most people because I've had to step outside of capitalism, and I use money very differently than most people. I see it as a tool, but money needs me, I don't need money, you know?
Mhm.
Like, if there was just, like, money buried under the ground, what would it be? Nothing. Money buried under the ground, money needs us, not the other way around. I also had that problem in school because I would ask the question because they was I remember in 3rd grade, they were telling us, like, "Okay, so money used to be backed by the silver, but it's not backed by silver anymore." And so I was like, "Okay, so what is it backed by?" My teacher didn't like that question.
Oh no, she's asking questions.
It's
Get her.
and I was like, "So what is it backed by?" And she was like, "So they make it at the Federal Reserve?" I was like, "I don't understand." And so as I've gotten older, I feel the same way. It's very, very hard for me to, like I would have to be doing something beside the fact that I have so many illnesses to deal with, the fact of, like, selling my time feels so, um, much harder,
Mm,
um, because it's something you can't get back,
true.
and the idea of, like, not making enough money to be able to live off of my time, which is irreplaceable. And the fact that so many people are in that position, it just doesn't make sense, but we're here to talk about me, not capitalism.
Yeah. Although, it must be interesting opting out of capitalism, but still have
Having to operate within it, yeah,
exactly.
mhm. It makes for, different choices, and for me, when I see people spending money that they don't have to, I'm like, "Oh, oh, it's a convenience tax, and you're okay with paying the convenience tax on this product because it's just easier for you to do it that way." But for me, I'm like, "Why would you spend $50 on something when you can spend 25?" They're only selling it to you for 50 because they can.
Yeah, it's an interesting society we live in.
Right.
Uh, One of the places that I feel like I'm able to escape any pull of capitalism is
Mhm.
being out in nature.
Yes, ugh.
And that's, something that I try to do 100%, whether I'm hiking or getting lost in the woods or, just outside in some way. I'm not checking my phone or my watch. I'm just staying for as long as my spirit says, you need this.
Mhm.
And that's always been something that I've appreciated because it makes me get back to like the human element and why we're here and being in nature, because most of human history, humans have spent their time in
Nature
nature.
lived alongside nature, and it's now it's like we're competing with it.
Yeah, especially in modern life, it's so easy to spend, especially for me because I work from home. It's so easy to spend time indoors and forget that you need to be outside. You need to see the color of green.
Mhm.
You need to feel the sun.
And when you say that too, it's also essential to healing. And anytime that I've ever been in the hospital for like an extended period of time, that was the one thing that made me feel so much worse was not being able to go outside, not being because the windows are sealed. Back in the early 1900s, they had um like rooftops with like just hospital beds where they would put the patients out so they could just be in the sun all day.
Oh, I love that.
Right, and it's like, I need like, y'all need to be putting Chase Lounge when I don't and that's what my grandmother used to do, like, when I would, miss a lot of school, I would spend a lot of time with her. She would be making me, like, rice puddings, corn puddings, like, very, basic kind of things, congees kind of stuff, and, she even if I was throwing up, she made me go sit outside for a little bit, but I would always feel better. But it's like you're saying, it's like that connection with nature. Um, it is it gives me chills sometimes just thinking about it. I have a tree outside my room that has like watched me grow up. And when we had Hurricane Isabel, the tree's like, look, Triana held me down. Okay. When I tell you there was a tree that came from the back of our house that came across, but her branches split like this, like into a Y, and it caught the tree from the backs. Yes, caught the tree from the backyard, like right in the middle of her branches, and otherwise it would have like went right. The tree would have went right across the roof in my room.
Oh, wow.
I was like,
Yeah, your tree protector.
my tree protector when I tell you nature, like, around my house looks out for me, that's also 'cause, I be throwing little orange peels out for the birds and stuff like that. My mom came in my room one day and was fussing and, carrying on about something. A squirrel came to the window and was, like, throwing little pebbles. I've had the craziest experiences. I've had a bat crawl under my door. When I tell you nature. Yes, I had a bat crawl underneath my door, just, like, stare at me. Crawl. They got you got wings, but you gonna crawl? So, nature will send signs, nature will speak to you, nature will heal you, nature will touch and agree, the universe will touch and agree. People are like, "No, it's not." I'm like, "Okay."
I mean, we are a part of this environment, and it's a two-way street. And I feel like the more we can nurture
Mhm.
that symbiosis, the better off everyone will be,
For sure.
because we all have to live on this earth.
I wonder how she feels, all of us on her back, like.
It's exhausting, because people are exhausting. Speaking as a fellow person, our race is exhausting. Um, I'm curious, do you have any particular rituals that you enjoy doing in nature or any ways you like to enjoy nature?
I love, like, being in a hammock and, just taking a nap by the river, by the in the forest. Just I keep it in my trunk,
Well, you're ready.
ready. If you stay ready, you have to get ready.
Exactly.
Like I go to the park all I love to. It's even when it's raining sometimes, just because it's so healing, it's nice to just sit out in the different types of elements. Sometimes it can be a little bit too much, like it, but it has to be like, it's a particular type of rain.
Right.
You know,
Not a torrential downpour.
no, not
Yeah.
that.
It's like a late mist.
Yeah, I'm just like getting so relaxed just thinking about it. But yes, I love taking my little hammock and just, Caribbean, let's go in a book. As a matter of fact, I was reading Kindred um in my hammock on the river weeks ago. So yeah.
Actually, I feel like you need to have that sort of calming environment when you read Kindred.
Mhm. You must.
Yeah,
It's a requirement.
yeah, it is. Other than environments, I feel like we also look to people for healing as well. Um, and when I think about my own family and their struggles with health issues, it's definitely an interesting generational split because my grandparents in general, I think, carried their illnesses in silence.
Mhm.
And I think a good story of this is my mom, I can't remember if she was living with her mom, my grandmother at the time, or if she was just visiting. But my grandma was sick and she didn't tell her kids what she had. And my mom was at home and my grandma's home and the phone rang. And this was back in the 90s. It was a landline. And my mom picked up the phone and it was the doctor on the line. He was asking to speak to Mary Ellen, and that's my grandma. So her mom goes, "Oh, yes, this is Mary Ellen." And that's how she found out that her mom had breast cancer, was through the conversation. And there's a lot of those kind of stories, I think, in my grandparents. And I'm curious if your illnesses have changed how you talk about health with your family.
Um, no.
Wow.
Um, they because I look the because I, put so much time into most people don't see me when I'm, really, like, down, or they wouldn't know because I've become so good at symptom management. Um, on occasion, there's sometimes I can't, Barbara Ann got me on that one, she went, I'm like, "Alright, girl, bye. It's you." But when they see me, I look, um, regular and normal, so they're just like, "Well, why isn't she working? Why isn't she doing this? Why is she doing that?" And they know that I have certain things going on, but they just are like, Generation X and baby boomers are like, "Well, if your arm isn't falling off and your eyeball isn't detached, there's nothing really wrong with you," you know? So go and get your two-step and get to that job, like, with they they don't see, like they don't really because you can't see, they don't really I'm like, "How you believe in God?" But that's all yeah, I don't go there with them. I don't go there with them. But
Has it caused some level of friction, them not being able to be more empathetic to your entire story?
not yet. Well, I think it's caused friction on their part and growth on mine.
Mm,
It's caused so much expansion on mine because I've had to keep growing, and at first I was accommodating, and then I was like, "Hold on. No, hold on. Mm-mm-mm." And then I started to see, okay, maybe I need to look at this from a different perspective anyway. And then I was like, I don't really give a fuck what you think anyway. Like, to be completely honest, because sometimes I do like what I call logic math on a situation to like kind of pull myself out of it. I'm like, would I trust them making decisions for me? Okay, no. Um, have I seen the fruits of their labor? Yeah. Is it good? No. Is it something that I would, since we're talking about, capitalism, is it something I would produce? Hell no. So why would I trust their opinion or their guide? Are they doing anything in life that I would want to be doing? Or have they overcome something that I've overcome? Or do they know a way out of what I'm doing now? No, they don't, because they don't know a way out of what they're doing now. They don't know how to do their own stuff.
yeah, that's a really good point about filtering the advice you get and only really taking it from people who are doing something that mirrors your life in some way or shows you that they've had growth.
Yeah, that's it. Like, peop people will tell you all day, how that you should live your life, and it's just like, that doesn't fit for me, but thanks. And sometimes it is in a loving way, so, it's like, I don't wanna sound bitter, but it's like, sometimes people do speak that over you in a loving way, and they're like, "Oh, I wish this for you." That's different, but when people are just like, "Put your nose to the ground, like, what are you doing? Get these dollar bills," and I'm like, "For what? You want me to get that paper? You want me to give up my" and, I obviously, I say that from a place of privilege right now, and there have been points where I have had to take time to exchange it, whatever. But, I just feel differently about money and time and life than I did before I was sick. I just feel differently about them. Um, I'll make the choices I need to make, obviously, but they feel different than before. Before, it would be like, I would say almost a sense of desperation about money, and that was very common, I think, pre-pandemic. And there is a little bit of that now, but not in the same sense. It's like, "What do you mean you want" you know, like, the people are asking for more in the macro sense.
I'm also curious. I mean, our parents are getting older, Brunel, and
Right.
I'm bearing witness to seeing them age more pronounced before my eyes. And it's really made me sort of make sure I have certain conversations with them, like, okay, how did your colonoscopies go? Like, did you take your medicine? What medications are you on? Where's your will? How do you want to be buried? And I think, within my immediate family, we kind of saw, as I was saying, how our grandparents were living and what became of losing them so early and not having the opportunity to have those conversations. And so, we're definitely trying to make steps to make health more at the forefront, be one of those core topics that this is what you should do as a family is talk about health. Have you had more of those conversations with your parents' health, or has the focus always been more on you?
I just don't think they wanna have any of those honest conversations, like, about health, period. Um, it might be too scary for them. Um, like, I found out my mom had breast cancer in an email the day before she was having a surgery.
That's crazy.
Right. Yeah. That's how I found out my mom had breast cancer.
But also that she wouldn't tell you that she's having surgery, which, there's an element of fatality to that.
So, like, that's the kind of, like, level of, communication that they'll kind of ask about my stuff, but not really, and I'm like, "I need you to learn how to use an EpiPen," and they're like, "A pen that you write with?" And I'm like, "Are you being intentionally dense, or you just want me to die?" Like, what
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
No, it's for real, cause it's like the only thing you can do is laugh, and it's just like, "Okay, well, I will save myself."
Right. Or the bat. The bat may have to crawl under and
The bat like, the bats, the squirrels, the deer, like, all my little animal friends, they'll be like, "In my own little co" all my friends will come rescue me, they gon' come. They come, the birds, they will I'll be fine.
Yeah, I definitely believe that for you. Do you think having gone through everything that you've experienced, your idea of strength has changed or evolved?
I think yes, for sure. I think everybody has it's like strength is like a muscle, right? So you might be strong in patience, and I might be strong in forgiveness or strong in there's a lot of different ways you can have strength in being a person. Like, I'm finding strength for me is like holding boundaries.
Mm.
Um, strength is for me is like saying no and sticking to that and not letting people fold on that. That's another ritual. I feel like you asked me about rituals. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that um I know that was back before, but
No, please share it. You feel
but
compelled.
yeah, no, rituals are just like making sure I eat well and just being my own friend and like making sure I'm setting myself up for success. Oh, switching to the lunar calendar was a really helpful thing.
Mm. In what way?
It was just guiding me about like when to do certain things, like when to eat certain things, what the energy was, and it was actually pretty true. So I would say a forgiveness ritual, like where it's like I apologize and say thank you. It's a Hawaiian ritual. It's like called Ho'oponopono. Forgive me, I know I'm saying that wrong, but
That sounds really beautiful.
it,
What does it involve?
it's just like you say, like, I'm sorry, forgive me, I forgive you, thank you. It's just like, and I, it's something similar to that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but when I was like had some really dark moments, that was something I was doing like every day. So most of the I would say most of my rituals would be like meeting my need, like I was saying earlier, like meeting whatever my needs are at the moment. Like if I need to, get my sweetgrass, I get that. If I need to, make something and do that. I just really try to, and that also is like how you're talking about, like with like my disconnect from capitalism. I get to have the freedom of really like speaking to meeting my needs, where it's like, oh, I'm having an allergic reaction to this, like I need to stop, I need to make this from scratch for myself. I can do that. I can meet my needs in that way because I have time. So
Yeah, in a way, you're almost more autonomous and you don't have to rely on, like, maybe you rely on the institution to source your ingredients. Yeah, you don't have to rely on going to the store to get the finished products and paying for their marketing and paying for them to get their ingredients. And you become more aware of what goes into the process. So not only are you learning, but you also know exactly what you put into your body. And I think that's really useful because we just all sort of assume.
and I know that was part of the reason, like, I get sick sometimes because they'll say, "Oh, this is this," and it's not all the ingredients, and I just like, "Oh my gosh, I wish there was a way to, help people," because so many people just that was another, I guess, ritual or is, like, self-nurturing and, like, really filling in my, like, soul in those spots that were just in my chakras, I guess, too, the spots that were just really kinda empty, um being around people that I feel like are iron to me. And that's something that's been really sad too, is like having to um, walk away from relationships that you want to have, but you realize you can't have because of either like disrespect or crossing of boundaries or just whatever have you. I think that's been the biggest thing. And I have saved money, I have saved time, I've saved energy. Um, I've had to break my own heart because it's like you don't wanna not be friends with people or not, be in relationship with people. But sometimes it's like, this isn't even good for my health. So,
I understand that. And I think at the end of the day, I think about it as I'd rather have three or four really great friends and having, hundreds of people that I know. So in general, I think the more you filter out these people that aren't necessarily congruent with how you want to live your life, the better off you are because it's also making a health choice. This is the energy that I let into my life, and I think that, what was that? Last week, Monday, you asked me if I believe in magic. And I realized that friendship is actually a really great example of magic because your friendship is your coven.
Mhm.
So that energy that you keep around you is going to seep into who you are. And you want to tell me that if you want to go out and pursue some goal and you keep five naysayers around you, that you're going to be able to do that as easily as if you keep five people that support and uplift you. And I think that's a really good example of magic, but
Mm.
may not be like the fantasy sense, but it will impact your life. And I don't know, I think there's just something incredibly beautiful about being intentional about the friendships that you have.
I think that is so beautiful, and I think it is true because, co-creation is magic because when you find somebody that's willing to, like, pour into the situation just as much as you are and willing to hold up as much as you are, it's like your energies are just like they're vibing, they're sparking and mix, and it feels like magic, and then it's like when they leave, it's like, "Oh," because it's like it like you were saying, friendship is magic, and it's like some people will come and they won't, like, be a co-creator in a situation. They will just come and just be in there, and you have to be the one like, "Okay, hey,
Mm.
how you doing? What's up?" And it's like,
Right. Give me some reciprocity here.
it's not that you're trying to take it, but it's just like, let's like you said, reciprocity.
Yeah. Yeah, another form of magic that I have in my life, I think, is music.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I started learning the keyboard this past year, and I've always really loved the piano, like just listening to piano pieces or listening to um the parts of a song that are heavy in pianos.
Mm.
I love Alicia Keys, but also love like Eric Satie
Mm.
and Hans Zimmer and some of these
Mhm.
like European composers. And when I sit down to learn a song and I'm in front of the keyboard and I'm getting into the groove, I'm okay. I think I got some of the finger work here. I notice that often there's an emotional response that's happening, and I'll think back to being 9 years old
Mm.
and my mom telling me, "Your grandma's there,
Mm.
and you can't go to the funeral
Mm.
because we already had it.
Oh.
They want you there because 'cause you're gonna be sad."
Mm.
Or, all the teasing that I went through being a gay man, and it's so interesting. Because 'cause I'm just like, I'm just trying to figure out where to put my fingers, but I feel like I'm on the verge emotionally, and there's something about, I guess, the way my mind is wired in piano where it just brings up past trauma. And there's sometimes where I have to stop playing, but I always come back to it. And I think there's something about music that it's not necessarily solving those traumas for me, but I sit with it longer every time. And I feel like I'm able to process it in a bite sized chunk. So, I'm curious, what does music do for you? And does it play at all into your healing process?
Oh, for sure. Music can get me out of bed. Yes, I love music. I love playing music, listening to music. Um, I can understand it's like a certain note will like hit you in the chest and it's like playing you. It's not like you're playing the instrument you're being played
Yeah.
literally because the note in your body, like it's like somebody is strumming the note and it's like, like, And sometimes they can feel really good, and that's why I can listen to some songs over and over and over and over again because there's just those different parts, um, of the music that are just, ugh, ugh, ugh. Yes, no, I think music and movement are some things that have really helped, especially with my healing, and in combination with, like, you know, smoking, but, like, in terms of, or I prefer, like, liquid things, but, like, doing that and then, like, stretching and listening to music is so
It's a spiritual practice.
it is, and, one time I 'cause I was with my sister and I just put on gospel music, and she was like, this was so," she was like, "This is so emotional," and I was like, "You gotta give it to the green gods, like, you cannot be," and that's the thing that I don't like when I do smoke, I am very ritualistic about it. I'm like, "Thank you for this medicine," like, I'm very, like, to my ancestors, it's all the gratitude and da da da, and it's very, like, spaced out and I do it just the same way I do my other medicine.
Mindfully.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful for that. But back to the music, but, like, music and movement together are just so even if, like, you're just moving your eyelids from left to right, because you can't do anything or, because not everybody can move or you just moving your soul. Because sometimes you can just feel I don't know, music makes me feel elevated, especially especially, if I could make my own album I'll ask you first. If you could make your own album, what genre of music would you
Ooh, that is so hard to answer because I feel like I love so many different kinds of music.
It could be fusion.
So I think it would definitely be a fusion um with elements of hip hop,
Okay, okay.
elements of soul like R&B, like really like Motown, also just elements of instrumental music,
Mm.
though, where you just really hear these really long piano riffs that are somber but moving and just kind of blending all of those things together to make an album.
That sounds so much like you. Like a little leather whiskey something.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Wow, that's a great question. Well, what about you?
Okay, it would definitely be a fusion, but it would be like a disco bossa nova type thing,
Okay.
with a little bit of, like you said, soul, um, influence for sure, like that, soul gospel-y thing, but yeah, I feel like those would make and oddly, like a little bit of metal. I think that's really
Yeah.
weird.
It's like that unexpected
Yeah,
position.
and I think it would, like, work really well together. You wouldn't expect those kind of things together, but, like, with the bass and all of those, like how the bass functions in disco, how bass functions in bossa nova, how bass functions in metal, like, I think and I mean, you wouldn't have to do those all in one song, but, like, you could use it to tell the story.
Right. Yeah.
But, yeah, definitely disco.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned listening to gospel music. And I realize, I really do enjoy gospel music and I stopped listening to it, essentially when I came out of the closet and left the church. But
Painful,
yeah, but that was always my favorite part about church
but
was the
music,
choir, the
because it's
music.
ancestral for us,
Yeah.
and it's not about it's a cultural and ancestral thing, I think gospel music is. It's not always about a dirge or being celebratory. I think it's about looking for keeping your eyes here, like above into the future and not what's going on in the present, because that's what they had to do. They were worried about us. You remember, like, they worried about their descendants. That's what they were doing in their actions. And in so many, I do have a mixed heritage. And so in so many of those facets, it's like I'm Black with a mixed heritage. I'll say that. I love that. But um, in so many of those, in a couple of those different cultures, it's like they will. I'm sorry. I was talking about. It's like they'll study like the people that are important. It's like, yeah, you include yourself, but it's like 8 people forward and 8 people backward, and that's the combination of like how you should step in this world. Like 8 generations forward and 8 generations back, and that's how you should make your decisions and stuff like that. People are very centric in their decisions about life now and what's happening now and how they want to live their life. And I've been finding myself like running into issues with like I'm like, oh, it almost feels like not a character thing, but it's a personality thing that people want to be so focused on more and more and more and acquiring more and more instead of having like enough and then passing on more because that's how everybody gets enough instead of just like hoarding it. I don't know, but
Yeah. No, I can see that even when I approach my life thinking about myself in the long term is how I've tried to make more of my decisions. Like I'm still stumbling like everyone else, but one of the biggest reasons why I moved back to the States was to be around my family. And they're in good health right now, but it was a long term decision of, okay, my parents are in their 60s. I see them once a year. If they live to their 85, I see them 20 more times and they're dead.
and that's not a lot.
And that's not a lot. And so the longer term vision was I want to be around them more often. And so now I see them, 2 to 3 times a month. And I'm getting in that time with them while they're in good health. And I think being able to zoom out of the life that I had in Amsterdam and realizing even though this is spun right now, this is me trading off that time that I could get with my family. And I can always move back to Amsterdam, but I can't get that time with my
Yeah,
family back.
and that's what like people don't understand that time is you can't make more. That's the only resource we cannot not only, but that's a resource you cannot make more of. So, you know, I always try to use it to make myself more comfortable or put myself ahead in a way and that includes rest. Giving myself rest is putting myself ahead. It's making me more successful so that later I have the energy to do X, Y, Z, da, da, da.
Yeah, because you don't have to do everything right now.
No, I don't.
And you probably shouldn't do everything right now.
For what?
Because some things you need space and time to like let it sink in before you can, make those decisions.
Yeah, I did not finish painting my nails last night, and I decided this morning I wasn't gonna do it either. So I was like, okay, they're gonna just
This is me.
this is me today.
Well, I'm curious if you could beam sort of one message into humanity, what would that message be?
I would say we need each other more than we act like it. Charity starts at home, and Earth is our home. So maybe we should be a little bit nicer to each other on Earth, and then the aliens will let us be part of the Federation. Because right now,
And they're like, y'all some dusty ass people. Not letting that energy in.
um, they're not waiting on us at the door. They not. They're not waiting on us at the door. Um, let's be a little bit nicer to each other. Maybe that starts with being nicer to ourselves. And take your time. Um, take your time. Everything is gonna work out. Don't force it. That's one thing I've learned big time. Everything's gonna work out anyway.
Well, you were forced to
Yeah,
realize that.
yeah, that's true. So I guess to sum all of that up, or to tag that, you can either go with the flow or get beat up by it.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot. Be like water.
Water off a duck's back. Yeah.
Yeah. If someone was just about to start their health crisis,
Mm.
whatever it is, do you have any words for that person just beginning that journey?
Be really nice to yourself more than anybody else. Um, but be nice to the people around you as well, especially anyone willing to help you. Try to speak to yourself so you can ask for what you clearly need, or find someone who can understand what you're saying to help you speak what you clearly need. Like if you need an advocate, definitely have that. And get as much rest as you can, whether that's like split up through the day or in one time. Just rest and laze about wherever as much as possible. Um, that's the only, not the only, that's the one of the greatest ways to aid in your recovery. And just give yourself the things that you need and you want in this time, you know. Treat yourself like you're a brand new little soft, gentle baby and you need little drops of love and care and tenderness. And don't be angry with yourself or your body. You know, it's trying to tell you something. For me, it was sit down. Go sit down. Yeah, I was working way too much.
Well, thank you for sharing your life.
I hope I've made it interesting.
You have. I think there's a lot of beauty in not only the experiences you went through, but how you decided to go through them and all of the rituals that you've put in place into your life now so you can have somewhat of a beautiful detachment from capitalism. And I think that is both something you needed for health, because I don't think that that's always a part of capitalism to take time for healing.
No, because then you're not going to be a machine.
Right. And it is a very inspiring look into your life and how we all be a bit more detached from sort of these material desires that we have and focus more on matters of the spirit.
You make me sound so special.
You are special.
Oh, thank you. You are too.
Well, nice having you here today, Kelley.
Thank you, Alvin.
If you liked this episode, hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts or wild stories. Your feedback is like gold to us and keeps the good stuff coming. Also, follow us on social media and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep reflecting and exploring. Peace.